Thank you so much, Mbugua, and thanks for the opportunity. My name, again, Olivia Etiang. I do take care of operations at the Visa Innovation Studio in Nairobi. So at Visa, we have 13 innovation studios or centers across the world, and this is the only one in sub-Saharan Africa. What consumes my day? I like problem solving. So at the studio, what I do is work with primarily our bank partners, who are our technical, traditional partners, but also work with startups, I work with fintechs to develop and just think through how we can develop human-centric solutions, right? So we get into discovery sessions and tackle the problems that they come with, and even work to co-create, solutions that we can take in the market that really make sense for, customers in our market. So localized solutions for Africa in Africa.
Fantastic. James?
Thank you. I think for me, happy to be here and happy to see Olivia. Olivia is one of my service providers and partner. So what consumes my day? I work for Sidian Bank. I'm the director of IT and operations. So most of the time is number one, of course, is keeping the bulbs on, like many of my colleagues who have been on in this room and on this stage. But most importantly is looking out for customer solutions and opportunities to transform lives. I'm also in charge of operations and customer experience, and therefore we spend a lot of time with our partners just looking at how, number one, we can remove friction in service offering, but most importantly is to see what sort of solutions can we offer to our customers to create value for them.
Fantastic. So I'll jump right back to you, Olivia. And just this week, in collaboration with one of your partners, you launched something that touches on our subject. Could you walk us through that journey and what informed that, what informed the creation of that particular product?
Thank you so much. So let me say, I'll give a lot of credit to my colleagues, both at Visa and KCB for the outcome that we had this week. So at Visa, we are at the forefront of digitizing payments. And Tap to Pay is one of those emerging technologies that we're really, focusing on in sub-Saharan Africa. So this was really a project that perhaps took a bit of time, yes, to be launched into the market, but what we have is the ability to be able to tap to phone, the ability to be able to tap to pay. So traditionally, again, our cards have been plastic, right? Mm-hmm. And we have seen the rise of, e-commerce transactions, and we've seen the rise of insecurity and fraud in the card world. And Tap to Pay really comes in to tokenize these credentials and make sure that, the credentials are wrapped up in a very secure manner and enable you to perform, these transactions conveniently, simply, and, just being able to tap to phone. Our society is, and I could say that we are so mobile-centric. In fact, globally, 13% of the population that is banked is mobile-centric. In Kenya, I think this is a lot more because of the existence of mobile money. And so being able to have your card on your phone makes a lot of sense in the sense that you should be able to access these financial services everywhere you go. Yeah? And for banks, this is an opportunity to tap into segments that they've not been able to tap in before and have new revenue pools.
Fantastic. I think what I'm picking from that is, the market gives you certain feedback, and then you decide on how best to articulate that. Personally, I don't remember the last time I carried my wallet or used my card, whether it's at an ATM or at a store. Only recently at a store, because they've been giving fantastic discounts. 20%, 15% off. I will look for that card. But I used to do phone check, wallet check. Nowadays, just phone check. So if I'm just doing phone check, then I think that insight is rather obvious to say, why don't you move the card onto phone in a way that still remains, still a way that remains secure. James, is that a smartwatch? Yeah. You're not on a dial TikTok like myself. What do you use that for? And so don't tell us what you want to hear, like what you really use it for.
So essentially, of course, as you can see, a bit of pounds added from the last time you saw me. So of course, this is a value add in terms of the fitness. So primarily that's the use case. Mm-hmm. But I would say today there are more use cases that we are seeing. Yes. I happened to be in Vienna 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to have a SIM card. And I could not get a SIM card because I was not on a roaming. So what I did is to buy very fast a SIM card, and I was able to use it on this watch. So there are many use cases. Some of them are very incidental, but I think the conversations for today then clearly shows that these incidental use cases sometimes can become primary use cases for some of these devices.
Great thought. So how can we dive a bit deeper into that and maybe look at the context of banking? You spoke about the context of communication, and I'm assuming that was you're able to get it as an eSIM, and therefore you're able to just map it on your device and move. I think that's fantastic. Now let's bring that home to the FinTech Summit and say, how do we then connect that phone to banking services? Primarily, you've been using it for fitness purposes. How do we connect that to what you consider traditional banking services?
Awesome. I think just looking at the conversation that was here just before we came to stage, the panelists just did a great service to the topic at hand. I think IoT in the days ahead, and even today, has become inherent way of how manufacturers manufacture devices. So I don't think there's any manufacturer today who is not manufacturing connected devices, whether they're IP-based or whether the connectivity is by traditional, connectivity modes. So just looking at the use cases which are there, for example, today, and which I've seen, some of my colleagues trying to experiment locally here, and which, ideation team are still in the lab and thinking about. Mm-hmm. So the wearable devices, most of them, for example, the watches or even the glasses, bracelets and others, give a lot of convenience. So Jane spoke about, ability to have your phone all the time. Yes. And I think for the watch, it's not even 12 hours, it's 24/7 because I sleep with my watch because, I want to monitor my sleep and other things. So it's a 24/7, and therefore gives a huge opportunity in terms of us, putting the possibilities of the mobile, bringing those possibilities on a smaller screen, and creating convenience. So one of the use cases that I see is ability just to tap and see my balances on the device. I remember 5 years ago, I was working for another bank which is no longer there because they merged. And for the canteen, we actually used the watch to actually do tap and go. So that's the other use case that I can see in the interim. And of course, what we've spoken about, and I think what Olivia and team have been able to do, to just virtualize cards, and you are able to use that in an FC fashion for tap and go capabilities. So there are so many capabilities that we can see today, and especially capabilities that don't need authentication, or the use cases that need biometric authentication. Those are use cases that we can put on the mobile, but being careful because of the security reasons, and also being careful not to dilute the user journey because of the size of the screen.
Fantastic. So James mentioned security and privacy. So I'll let you take that. You work with partners globally, and how do you address this issue of privacy and security as one question? And then the second question would be, Are there any standards globally that we can subscribe to? Because one of the things I'm passionate about is we being able to build out our own devices. And these devices being readily acceptable the world over, because if we innovate in a certain sector, like I'm passionate about public transport, can we then take these solutions out there? So Olivia, how do we address the issue of privacy and security? And are there any global standards that we could then subscribe to when building things out?
Thank you for that question. I'll start answering that question, but by just showing these devices so that guys can relate that these are the wearables. So of course, you're wearing a Fitbit or, a smartwatch, and we have, like a very simple, less than $1, NFC wearable bracelet. And of course, again, some of these devices come in the form of, like a SIM card that you can actually, store it in this kind of a fob, and even key fobs and stuff like that. So these take a lot of forms and shapes, right? And so if you talk about security of these devices, there are certain hardware elements that, are developed or built in the chip to ensure security. But I also want to talk about EMV standards,
Correct. Yes.
Because that is what drives the card business today, and very secure EMV standards. So we are talking about contactless. We are talking about EMV standards embedded into these devices. We are talking about contactless, meaning that we've tokenized this device. By the way, if you tokenize, it means that your credential, the merchant will not be able to see.
Okay.
They would be able to see the token, and that can only be used every time you are making a purchase. So in terms of security, again, there's a lot of security that is around these wearables. In fact, more secure than your physical card. So I've just mentioned the standards around EMV and what we are doing around tokenization and even hardware secure elements on the chip that are being used to develop this.
Fantastic. Just because of time, and I'm seeing we're already 15 minutes into that, and for a lot of the audiences, we'd love for them to also interact with the displays there. In closing, how do we drive adoption? Because you see, I participated in Fitbit's crowdfunding. Like I was one of those guys who said, I wanted the first one out. I mean, I'm a chapper, but it's still something I put there and say, wow, this was the first time I was seeing an e-ink screen, but the price points may not be for everyone. How do we drive adoption so that my grandmother will be comfortable saying, there's this thing that I can use, whether it's for banking or other utilities? How do we get the consumers to for us not to push it, for them to actually come and demand these devices? Maybe start with James and close off with Olivia.
I think, Mbogo, I want to share with your sentiments there. I think sometimes, as techies, sometimes we get this technology and we want to fit it into, solutions.
Yes.
As opposed to getting problems and solving them with the technology which is available. So I think two things that I see from my industry especially, and especially being an SME-led, bank.
Yes.
So I see use cases where we do a lot of collaboration. So we want to fashion these and other technology in terms of market delivery in collaboration with partners like, Olivia and other partners in the fintech space. So we have actually come up with what we call banking as a service opportunities. So that now, if it's an app which is already on a Fitbit or even on a watch or any other device, then we embed there in what we call embedded finance. So we see an opportunity there. Number two is also what Olivia has said, looking for opportunities for solutions which are cost effective and which again, the user journey is not disrupted, is a seamless journey. So I see those are the two opportunities which exist today for us to actually roll out some of these technologies to the mass market and gain adoptability and acceptability.
Fantastic. Olivia, your take?
I want to end this by really speaking to what is in it for the banks and what is in it for the customers. And I'll read a few statistics that we've done based on a research that was done that 24% of customers say they would be less willing to change banks if they had a wearable. Yeah? 41% say they would make them think more, they would think more positively about their banks if they had a wearable. 46% confirm that they would actually start paying using that wearable. And 66% say they would feel comfortable paying using this wearable. So we've got consumers really waiting for these solutions, and all we need to do is to get the fintechs and the banks to, provide the solution and drive adoption, yeah? In fact, for the banks, we have seen a lot of adoption. Where we sit, we're able to see information from maybe the CIMEA region.
Yes.
And in the Asian, countries, we've seen a lot of adoption on Fitbit. And, if banks and fintechs are able to take this up, then they disintermediate the big tech, because everyone is afraid that big tech is going to come and take our share and all that. But we have an opportunity to do this. In fact, it has been shown that customers will be more loyal to these solutions, right? And like I said, we are opening up new segments. If you're going to enable me to have my phone 24/7, then it means that I'm able to do things that I was not able to do before with this phone. So you're going to actually unlock new revenue opportunities for the bank. So there's a lot of potential for wearables,
yes,
and highly encourage this. We've seen Nairobi County talking about food for education. This is really encouraging. Yes. At the studio, we are testing solutions around transport. I know I've been doing this for a long time, and we hope that someday we will have a solution around wearables and transport and stuff like that. Yeah, so there's opportunity, and when the banks and fintechs create this opportunity, trust me, there'll be adoption. Because as you have seen, we have a range of devices,
yes,
even those that are less than $1.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, help me in appreciating Olivia and James.